my people, and welcome back to the Fandom Zone podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, DJ Nick, back in the Fandom Zone, this time to discuss some more mischievous Loki with my fabulous co-host, amazing friend, and the man who recently celebrated his 52nd birthday, Charles Skaggs. Hey Charles, how are you, and happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you, Nick, very much. I really appreciated that. I appreciated your birthday greetings and your birthday message that I got on Facebook Messenger. So cheers for that. I am not, the new 52. I want to just preface that right off the bat because we know if you're a DC Comics fan, that one didn't turn out so well. So I prefer the classic pre-Flashpoint 52 where we had, heroes that, you still had all your memories since 1986 and everybody was feeling more heroic and positive about everything. So
yes, and in fact, we could actually do a whole podcast on the new 52, but tonight is not the night.
That joke. I'm just saying. Hopefully,
yes, right. They certainly will. And did you have a good birthday? Were you able to get out and do some things for your 52nd?
I did. And my wife Lori and I, we took my parents out who are now in their 80s. So we didn't get to do much, obviously, but I wanted to spend the day with them because. Not sure how many more we're going to get, obviously, so I want to treat everyone as special as possible. Cool. So we went out, did our first dinner out for about the first one in about a year and a half, if you can believe it.
Wow. Since
COVID hit and lockdowns and whatnot, we finally went out to the Old Bag of Nails pub restaurant here in Hilliard, Ohio. Had a lovely fish and chips dinner, which was delightful, and I had a nice little blue moon to go along with that to complement the fish and chips perfectly. Ooh. And, it was very nice. It was very relaxed and just a beautiful day. The weather was gorgeous. My wife, Lori, bought me free comics earlier in the afternoon at my local comic book shop, The Laughing Ogre, here in Columbus. So cheers, Lori, for that. And, it was just a wonderful day, and I was very fortunate, and I got to get all these wonderful greetings from people like you and on friends and, a couple listeners here on Fandom Zone, so cheers to that. And thanks, everybody, for all the wonderful birthday greetings.
Well, they're definitely very well deserved, and hopefully now you realize how loved you are, Charles. So,
well, all of your checks in the mail, don't worry. I will get them out to you, so, was I not supposed to say that out loud? I'm sorry.
Well, you'll definitely have a lot of writing then to do for sure when it comes to that. But yeah, so I'm very happy you had a fantastic birthday.
And how about you, Nick? I know you're doing rather well since the Habs are up 2-1 in their series against the Vegas Golden Knights.
Well, crossing all fingers, the Habs, I think, are surprising everybody. Nobody expected them to go even as far as they are right now in the Stanley Cup semifinal. Up 2-1. I guess we'll see tomorrow. Actually, is Game 4. As we record this podcast, I was recording this on a Saturday, but on Sunday it will be Game 4. So I'm just crossing fingers.
Still best of 5, right?
Yeah, at this point, they could still take it in 5 games. Yeah.
So presumably, if they win next game, they've won because it's best of 5.
Well,
right?
Rather they're one game away, because if they win the next one, it's 3-1. Then they have to go back to Vegas and win it 4-1.
So that means it's a best of 7 then.
Best of 7. Yeah, it's still a best of 7. Yes.
Because if you have to win 4 games, that means a best of 7.
Yeah. What I mean is they can take it in 5 if they win the next 2 games. So here's hoping. I'm going to keep wearing
good luck. And, at least you're making a series of it. Because after that first game, it wasn't looking very promising, was it?
No, it was not. So I'm just going to keep wearing my lucky red Canadian socks, which are currently in the dryer, getting ready for tomorrow. So I keep washing and drying them, so they're ready to go.
Let's go, Habs.
Yes, indeed. Go Habs, go for sure. So, of course, getting back to the business at hand here.
Oh, yeah, podcast, right.
Yes, exactly. We were just freewheeling. This was freewheeling conversation with Charles and Nick.
So the usual then. Yeah.
That's right. So yeah, here at episode 221, folks, we are discussing the second episode of the 6th installment series Loki. This one's entitled The Variant. It was written by Alyssa Karasik at MCU and superhero debut here. This episode was directed once again by Kate Herron, who will be apparently directing all 6 episodes. So before we actually get to trivia and topics, Charles, I know this will be a very theory-heavy discussion, but what were your general thoughts on this second episode?
Well, after our first episode that we discussed last week, that episode was the introduction. It essentially introduced the players of the game. It told you the rules of the game. And now here in the second episode, we finally get to start playing the game. And as a result, things, start being very interesting from this point on. I mean, it was very, I think a lot of people, maybe because they're not used to like timey-wimey type stuff, like we used to talk about on Next Stop Everywhere and Doctor Who and whatnot. But so they get a little thrown by that. But now, now we get to kind of see the pieces in motion. And so we get introduced, obviously, and like I predicted, we get at the very end of the episode. Remember, I called that. At the end of the second episode, we
Lady Loki.
We got to see Lady Loki. Yeah. Now, whether she's actually Lady Loki is something we're going to discuss.
Yes, we will.
But we at least got the reveal of the bad guy, or a bad guy at least. And so I thought that was interesting. And we get to see more of how the show is going to progress going forward, because we get to see Loki with Mobius, and they're now paired on this case. The first episode was about bringing him in, trying to just control him enough to tell him the mission and talk about why they wanted him in the first place. But now that that's been established, now they can actually start getting these two out and having some adventures and great interaction with each other on this quote-unquote case they're on. And as a result, it's very entertaining. Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston have surprisingly good chemistry with one another. It's just really great banter, carries off very well. Owen Wilson is doing a fantastic job as far as I'm concerned. And we get a little bit more with Wunmi Masako as Hunter B-15, who still has that antagonistic relationship toward Loki. Yeah. And we get to see her possessed by the supposed Lady Loki at one point. So she gets to kind of play a different character as a result. And I thought that was a really interesting scene. So just a lot of interesting things going around. We get, more of Miss Minutes, which was a surprise because we weren't sure if we were going to get any more of Tara Strong voicing the character. So just a lot of great things going around. I can't wait to see where these next 4 episodes go after this. How about you?
Well, I'm right there with you. I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm so glad that compared to I guess WandaVision and The Falcon and Winter Soldier, these are actually long episodes, which is really nice.
What was it? 46 minutes this episode?
This episode clocked in at roughly 46 minutes. So that which was
like a proper length. Imagine that.
That's right. Having been used to, I suppose, these almost bite-sized episodes, especially when it came to WandaVision, this was a nice change of pace. And I love how this show kind of plays with multiple genres, because we have a little bit of sci-fi, we have a little bit of the whole kind of timey-wimey stuff. We have a cop show, which it seems it's kind of seeming to be a buddy cop show with Loki and of course Mobius. So I love that whole concept, and it just seems so far really, really well done. I like the story. You're getting also, of course, a hint of where the MCU at large is going to go, because obviously knowing when we talked about Glorious Purpose, of course, which was written by Mr. Waldron, who will be working on the next Doctor Strange film, it gives you an idea of where the MCU will be going from there. So I loved it, and all in all, great job done by all concerned for sure. So when it comes, to cast and trivia here, new cast, aside from the folks we had mentioned in our review of Glorious Purpose, we do have, new to the show, we have Sasha Lane as the unfortunate Hunter C-20, played by Alice Monaghan, Sasha Lane, obviously, who played Alice Monaghan in the 2019 Hellboy film. For those who actually watched the Hellboy film, I did. I don't know if I recommend it, but it's there. She also...
It exists.
It exists.
There's a pull quote for you. It exists.
It exists, exactly. She does play Alice Monaghan in that. Then, of course, she was in American Honey and the Prime Video TV show Utopia. Also, as Charles predicted, we did get an up-and-coming British actress, and it seems to have a lot of British talents here, which does not surprise me, seeing as director Kate Herron is, in fact, a Brit. So nothing wrong with giving work to your countrymen. We get, as I said, Sophia Di Martino as the variant, or as we could probably call her Lady Loki in inverted commas, but there are some theories when it comes to who the variant actually is, which we will get to here when we get to trivia. But I think we'll save that for that, and also when we discuss the variant more in detail. Trivia. Okay, at the beginning of this episode, we go to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, at a Renaissance fair as Professor Loki and our Minutemen on the hunt for the variant. Now, Oshkosh, Wisconsin is a fun nod to a chap who we had mentioned in the previous episode, a certain comics writer, Mark Grunwald, who, surprise, surprise, was born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and actually would have celebrated his 68th birthday on June the 18th. Right. Sadly, his comic book fans know we lost Mark way too soon at age 43 back in 96, so he's definitely still missed to this day. So, but yeah, definitely happy birthday, Mark Grunwald, wherever you are.
Right.
And also we get, when being instructed by Mobius to do his homework, Loki is taken to level 372 of the TVA, which is covered...
Thor 372, correct?
That is right, exactly. This is, of course, a nod to the Thor issue, which the TVA debuted, which is, of course, issue 372. Well spotted there, Charles.
Which we talked about last week as well.
Indeedy, yep. And then fun little Easter egg also, when Loki learns that Ragnarok happened when he's doing his research and he gets to his important conclusions. And amongst the things mentioned on the file pertaining to Ragnarok, we get a fun mention of the Revengers, which was, of course, that temporary supergroup in Thor Ragnarok made up of Thor, Hulk, Valkyrie, and Loki. So I like that they mentioned the Revengers. Even though, as we know, those who know Thor Ragnarok was kind of a spur-of-the-moment name, which I believe Thor came up with at the time, but it's nice to actually mention the Revengers. Furthermore, when our group Hunters and Loki travel later on in the episode to Alabama in 2050, we end up in a Roxcart parking lot. And the logo of the store name is no surprise reminiscent of a certain Roxxon Corporation, which had, of course, been mentioned and seen in Iron Man 2 and 3, the TV shows Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil, I believe also Cloak and Dagger.
Cloak and Dagger used them as well, yes.
And Agent Carter. So nice to see, I guess, this company appearing in the future in some form or shape. So that was fun.
Yeah, this is essentially Roxxon's version of Walmart.
That's right.
Because you get Roxcart, Walmart. It sounds similar, right? It's this big superstore.
Exactly. So I thought it was, and I guess they're probably going to be playing quite a few parts in the MCU in general. And speaking actually also familiar names, when the variant towards the end of the episode sets off the multiple reset charges, which spawn the equally multiple Nexus events, if you look at the TVA screen, folks, we get known places in the MCU like Hala, Xandar, Ego, Sakaar, Titan, and Asgard. So, I mean, I'm sure you probably did the same thing I did, Charles, where you freeze frame it to see what are the names on the screen. Did you do that?
No, but I mean, I was familiar. Like, I caught a glimpse of it, so I did recognize what they were trying to do. So yeah, I definitely appreciated it. But I had a feeling, my brother in the Phantom Zone, Nick, that you were going to do the freeze frame. So, job well done, sir. Well done. Well spotted. And your effort has not gone unnoticed and unappreciated.
Well, we try to of course pull our weight here on the Fandom Zone, of course, and the best we saved for last, because she whom they call the variant, or as we have called her a little bit Lady Loki, or is she that? Here she's actually called the variant, and in the comics, Loki is gender fluid in his shape shifting and took on this in the comics at least. And then, of course, Charles, feel free to fill in your gaps here, because I know it's quite an extensive story. But post-Ragnarok in the comics, in order to fool Thor, this character played a big part in this, because Loki took this form during the Dark Reign event,
right?
Which, amongst other things, brought the Dark Avengers. So it might be a foreshadowing of the Dark Avengers that we talked about, but the reason why
Certainly
it
seems
might,
that way, doesn't it?
I'm hoping, I really am hoping, because you and I gushed about the Dark Avengers.
Dark Reign also spun out of Secret Invasion, and we
Mm-hmm.
know that we are getting a Secret Invasion series.
That we are, yes.
So
So I'm
something to keep
crossing
in mind in
fingers.
the back of your heads, guys.
Hopefully some great stuff coming to the MCU when it comes to that. But the reason why, it might be safer not to call her Lady Loki just yet, and Charles and I were actually talking about this off air, is something that definitely piqued my interest. And folks, if folks happen to look at the Spanish credits for this episode, we have the actress Elsa Boita voices the character in the Spanish cast and is actually credited as Sylvie. Mm-hmm. Who is Sylvie, you wonder?
Yeah.
Well, it has been speculated this actually may be a certain Sylvie Lushton. Charles, would you like to elaborate a little bit here on who Sylvie Lushton is?
Of course I would.
Why us comic book fans know this name?
Yeah, so and even comic book fans, a lot of comic book fans aren't familiar with this character. So don't feel bad if you don't know who Sylvie Lushton is. It's understandable, perfectly understandable. But this character, Sylvie Lushton, first appeared in Dark Reign Young Avengers 1, number 1, as an average girl living in Broxton, Oklahoma, until the Asgardians moved their home of Asgard to Oklahoma, where they essentially parked Asgard right above Broxton, Oklahoma, during J. Michael Straczynski's run. And
everybody seems to love the South for some reason, which is
which I don't get at all.
South, but
yeah, I don't get it at all. But not long after that, Sylvie woke up one day just with magical powers because, hey, that happens. And unbeknownst to Sylvie, these powers were given to her by Loki for yet unknown purposes. And with her powers, Sylvie moved to New York City to become a superhero and join the Avengers. And she chose to take on the name and style of Amora the Enchantress, who is one of Thor's enemies, at least most of the time, and she's spoken in faux Asgardian manner. But, however, when Loki personally explained Sylvie's existence, he told her that he liked the idea of creating a mortal that suspects she's one of the Asgardians. So it's assumed that she was never really alive until she was created by Loki, and her entire existence and memories are presumably part of this. So essentially she's just something that Loki whipped up and gave at least some semblance of a soul just because it amused him. Or in this case, her, as we're talking about Lady Loki. But so it's very interesting that they would, because we talked about this, that Sylvie isn't a very common name. And
exactly.
So, and for one thing, this Lady Loki, as we're introduced to her, played by Sophia Di Martino, she's a blonde. So if she's a female version of Loki, why is she blonde? Because in the comics, Lady Loki has the jet black hair, like Tom Hiddleston has here. Yep. So it's a very interesting question. So the big theory now is, well, maybe it's not Lady Loki after all. Maybe it's someone posing as Lady Loki, or it's just some kind of strange tribute to both characters by creating like a MCU hybrid version of both for whatever reason.
That could be, because I was actually wanting to ask you. But in fact, because I was wondering when I saw that, I thought to myself, has the Spanish office dropped the bomb and revealed more than they should have? Because maybe they get given the scripts and maybe they're not told you have to name this person so and so forth, and so might almost have been an early spoil. I don't know whether to either play with that theory, but I'm thinking that maybe the Marvel Studios must be so airtight, they're probably like, and I'm sure they probably review even when they translate things. But it's weird that they wouldn't maybe call her, the variant in Spanish, but use the name Sylvie. Mm-hmm. So you either think, as I said, whether whoever was translating it from English to Spanish whether they just said, we'll just put Sylvie and they dropped the bomb without realizing
Or,
it.
like after they decided, they put that in there after they had watched all 6 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew who that character was supposed to be.
What's the most fitting name to give this character? Yeah.
Right. Or it was an intentional misdirection to get people like you and me spouting theories and acting like a crazy person, trying to make this work and figure out what's going on here.
It could be a cruel joke on the MCU's
like a certain
part.
Mephisto during WandaVision, that kind of thing.
Yes, it could be maybe just a cruel joke on Marvel's part, saying, "Let's mess with people."
That's it. She's Mephisto. That's it.
Yeah, and I can just see them like, let's put another name on the Turkish version because somebody's going to check the Turkish subtitles, or what have you.
Well,
so
comic book nerds, it's going to happen.
So it could even be a cruel joke, but definitely more on this character when we do get to her. And speaking actually of which, we have 4 topics today when it comes to discussing this second episode. First topic I like to call the Trickster Revealed. So, of course, episode 2 of The Variant starts off, as we mentioned, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. Love that name. In 1985, where another group of hunters, captained by Hunter C-20, are killed by Hunter C-20 herself, who is mind-controlled by the variant, and she kills her team. C-20 is then rendered unconscious and is dragged away by the variant. Then, of course, we get Loki and other hunters, amongst them B-15 and Mobius, end up there, and Loki is caught in one of his lies by Mobius, where it's revealed that Loki is possibly seeking an audience with the variant, or rather, in this case, he's saying, don't go outside the tent, because the variant will kill you. And Mobius is basically saying to him, this is bull, and it.
He's lying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Loki's like, yeah, you got me. And of course, and then Loki kind of talks to Mobius a little bit about his plan of getting in front of the timekeepers and, possibly talking to them and so on. And we do get a little bit of banter here between B-15 and Loki. So when it came to this, initial scene, I suppose, Charles, and also these initial, so we say, reaction. Well, first off, let's talk about Hunter C-20 and what happens there. What did you make of that whole moment? I mean, of just out of nowhere, this person from the shadows does something and boom, the whole team is dead and the Hunter C-20 is dragged away.
Well, it immediately pulls you into the episode, right? Because you're like, after the events of where you saw that very dark ending to episode 1, you wanted to know more. Okay, what's going to happen next? And sure enough, boom, right away, we see the variant making moves.
Yes.
So the variant gets a hold of C-20, and we don't get a reveal here yet. The variant is still hooded in a cloak, so we have no idea really who's behind this. But it kind of already right at the start fueled my speculation because they're being very deliberate about not showing what the variant looks like. Yeah. So it has to be a female Loki, presumably. And that's right. And that's what they were going for. But you mentioned Oshkosh. I want to mention that as a kid of the 80s, that we used to have a pair of jeans that was popular back then called Oshkosh Bagosh.
That's why I love that name, because they were actually called Oshkoshes in our home as well. As a toddler, I used to wear them. I remember, yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought that was kind of amusing. 1985, I thought was very interesting. This Renaissance Fair looks really good for 1985.
It does, doesn't it?
Because I've been to Renaissance fairs here in the States, and they weren't very popular until the late 90s. So I don't know why I'm sure they had some here and there, but it just seems a little interesting that they decided to set this at a Renaissance fair. In 1985, I think it's kind of amusing because 1985, that was the same year that Crisis on Infinite Earths hit. So,
Even though this isn't a Marvel show?
So would this count as an apocalypse, maybe? I don't know, that the variant is hiding in. I don't know, but crossover.
Yeah. No. And you, of course, mentioned the 80s, and, I love the fact we actually got a Bonnie Tyler song, and because I'm a big fan of Bonnie
Holding
Tyler.
Out for a Hero, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, the Bonnie Tyler version, which is my absolute favorite version of this song. You can throw as many.
They used that in the same pilot. They actually used that same song in the pilot for Lois and Clark: The New Adventures of Superman back in the day.
I mean, it is that good a song, you know, I suppose. Right. So, and of course, Bonnie Tyler's a great job, and I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. Yeah, when it comes to the whole really getting you into the episode right off the bat, and I thought it was great. And you do, of course, wonder what happens to C-20 by the end of the episode because we don't know, to be honest. Isn't she gets dragged away?
Well, we see her, when we get to the rocks cart scene.
Yes, she returns.
She returns there. She's all kind of like shaken and confused and tied up. But apart from that, really, her fate is kind of unknown.
That's right. Or why did one wonders why was she taken away, or rather why did the variant spare her?
Right.
Which I thought was
what was the purpose of that? Was it just to try to manipulate the events of what the Time Variance Authority was up to, or steer them in a certain direction? But you have to wonder what the purpose of kidnapping C-20 was, and maybe we'll find out more. So maybe that's a character we need to keep an eye on.
I wonder whether because, when it comes to getting an actress like that, like Sacha Lane, I think they probably would have more for her to do, seeing as she then played a big, role on a movie like Hellboy. Granted, okay, it's not Citizen Kane, but she did play a big role.
Or the first Hellboy, I might add.
Exactly, or either of the first two Del Toro Hellboy films for sure. But you do wonder that you get
better.
just a tad. But yeah, so you wonder if they get an actress like that, where they would probably use her more than just for what they did. So that's my theory, but who knows? And when it came to the whole thing getting B-15 there, because we've got a little B-15 kind of locking horns with Loki here a little bit to kind of further.
Locking horns. I see what you did.
I had to. But what did you make of the constant sort of antagonistic relationship that's going on between B-15 and Loki?
Yeah, well, I think the reason what they're doing with that, my guess is, as a writer, I'm guessing they're going to keep that through most of the season. Like probably through episodes 1 through 5, and then by the end, B-15 will have this grudging appreciation for Loki because of whatever whatever his role ends up to be. But right now, she provides a foil to him. She's more of the authority for him to rail against. He's the anti-authority. He's the rebel. He's a loner Dottie. He's a rebel, to use the Pee-wee's Big Adventure line. But so consequently, he needs that authority to rail against, and she's typical of that. She gives him no quarter. There's a wonderful part. I love this part where Mobius is like they're getting ready to go off on the mission, and Mobius pulls out a pair of Loki's knives to give to Loki.
Yeah, and he's like, do I get a knife?
Like, hey, you might need these. And then B-15 comes right off camera into the shot going, absolutely not, and grabs the knives and keeps walking.
Yes. Yeah, I suppose, I think you have something there when you say that their relationship will probably be antagonistic right up to the penultimate episode or last episode where it's like, I can't stand you, but you do actually do some decent things, and she might sort of reevaluate him when it comes to that.
She's kind of like the chief, the police chief or captain, captain perhaps in buddy cop movies, who really hates the troublemaker cop of the buddy cop pair, and after everything that's over and said and done with, by the end of the movie, the police captain comes to appreciate the unpredictable cop, the irrational, the crazy type. I'm thinking almost like a Mel Gibson Lethal Weapon type of thing.
I think that's a great comparison, and I suppose also because they are so direct opposites. Because she's literally law and order, and he's literally chaos and anarchy.
Yeah. So naturally they're they're opposites. Instead of attracting here, though, they're Although, it wouldn't surprise me if maybe eventually we get a sex scene. Just saying. But,
well, Loki getting his bad side on with B-15. Okay.
but you can understand why these two are butting heads here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so. And so I thought it is maybe, I suppose, a trope that we have seen before where you have the kind of odd couple of...
And Wunmi Masako is doing great in this role, I might add.
She is fabulous.
She was so good in Lovecraft Country. We talked about that last time. But here, I think it's, especially when she gets to play a different type of character when she gets possessed by Lady Loki. Or the variant, as we're calling her, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that once again is a great, obviously, chance for an actor to shine. Is in any movie where you're possessed, you have to play somebody else. Kind of makes me think of Paul Rudd when he had to play Michelle Pfeiffer's character in the second Ant-Man film. He is so convincing; it is creepy.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the sign of a good actor, right? That they
exactly. It's Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So, but yeah, Wunmi Masako is fabulous in this. I'm really enjoying her.
You and me both. I mean, the cast.
I think they're using her just the right amount.
Because I think if they had it maybe too much, it could have been. It maybe gets too dialogue heavy, and you don't get to move forward. So yes, as you said, they're definitely weighing all the ingredients properly.
Yeah, have her come in and give Loki a hard time for a couple of scenes here and there. I think it works great.
You have to, because I think you have to keep that relationship going, and plus the two of them together on screen works so well.
Right.
So, anything on this first topic before we move forward, Charles?
No, I don't think so. I think we've pretty much covered it. I think it works. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on, topic number 2, Professor Loki and Detective Mobius. Mm-hmm. This was an apt title for this one. Here, of course, we get the moment where we touched up on a little bit, where the show very much goes into police procedural style, with Loki doing his research on the TVA and how to possibly figure out where the variant will strike next, while making his own notes on, in his mind, his plan is ultimately to take over the TVA. And of course, we get quite a few hilarious and entertaining scenes between Mobius and Loki. And of course, there we get, Loki illustrating his apocalypse theory by ruining a perfectly good salad for Mobius.
I don't think that wasn't intentional.
No, exactly. I doubt
it was intentional that he was just.
It was totally deliberate.
Yeah, it's like when the moment when I'm sorry to interrupt, but when Mobius said, "I'm going to go get a snack," you knew that he was going to just go off to the and Loki wasn't going to just let that go. Because one thing, Mobius didn't say, "Hey, you want anything?" Didn't offer.
Okay, I'm gonna ruin your salad because you're not giving me anything to eat.
Right. I'm stuck here, so I'm gonna make your life hell.
So so looking at the way they now call him Professor Loki and Detective Mobius, we talked a little bit about their relationship in the first episode. How do you feel about these two, the relationship between these two in this one?
Well, obviously, like I said, first episode we introduced them. We set them up, we put them together, but now we get to play with these characters, and they start interacting, and we get to see them working on this quote unquote case involving the variant. So it's Mobius kind of takes his next step with Loki. He gives him a jacket at the beginning of the episode, and in a very interesting way. First off, we see Loki wearing a tie. Because, hey, he's now working in an office, right? So he's now wearing a tie.
Look the part.
Right, he looks the part, and now, because, he's going to be going out into the field, they give him a field jacket, but of course it has the word variant slapped in big yellow letters on a green jacket, I might add, which is very Loki colors.
Yes.
Of course.
It is very loud, but it is very Loki.
Well, if you notice, and that reminds me, the visuals in this show, they make a big point of emphasizing the color green.
Oh yes, from the Marvel logo.
From the Marvel logo, but like when they walk down the hallways, there's like a green filter on them.
Yeah.
So it's obviously trying to push that as the central color to represent Loki.
Yeah, Kate Herron very much wants to know it's about Loki.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's to just to showcase that overall theme to this series, to give a visual representation. So I thought I just wanted to point that out, but also with the jacket, right? The coloring is there, even though he's not in his traditional Loki costume, he's still wearing green and yellow in this process as a result.
And I wonder how many fans will want to get a jacket like that one with variant at the back. I'm sure we'll be seeing people at Comic-Con doing that or at some convention.
It's a very easy cosplay. So yeah, all you have to do is just get the jacket made and, put the lettering on the back of the jacket. And it's kind of funny because it's like an old, the style of it is like an 80s members only jacket, which I thought was kind of funny.
It's interesting. You bring up a good point because it's great how the TVA is very anachronistic in its own way because they like to play with things from different time periods because they are obviously super high tech as we saw, that sweeping shot in the Glorious Purpose in the first episode. But we see that they use very sort of old stuff, typewriters and all sorts of things. So it's interesting, this kind of contrast.
It's a hybrid of all these different eras in time. So they're just all pulling this in, and most of it, interestingly, is all Earth-based technology, right?
Yes, because you think they'd have more alien stuff if they basically know, the universe, if you will.
Yeah, is it time and space or just time on Earth? You have to wonder that, right? At least I do.
Unless they have different charters around, on planets or whatever, and they kind of communicate. So maybe there's one on Sakaar, or there's one on Hala, or there's one on Lord knows where.
But Loki, he's forced into this research. Essentially, Mobius dumps him in the deep end. Says like you said, I'm going to go off and get a snack. You go,
you do your homework.
You sit here, go through these files, and figure out where we can find the variant. So Loki's flipping through these files. He's not really getting the answers he wants. So he goes to this one clerk's desk.
Which is almost like a library, right?
Like a librarian, exactly. That's a great comparison. So and of course she won't respond to him until he dings this bell, which is broken, I might add, on her desk. And
I love how Tom Hiddleston times the ring with his finger.
Yes, dink. It just goes dink, because it doesn't work properly. But he's asking her, first he's asking, well, hey, give me whatever you have on the time variance authority. Yeah. That's classified. Okay, give me the beginning of time. No, that's classified. The end of time, that's classified. Well, what files can I look at? And she finally gets up and takes him to a section of the records or whatever, pulls out like one file. And, of course, it's about Loki himself.
Of course.
And he kind of just looks up and like, really? Seriously? So he starts going through that. And then, it's very interesting because this is where he starts to piece together, after looking at the fall of Asgard.
Yeah, because he didn't know about the Ragnarok event, obviously.
No.
But he'd seen in the theater of time, he'd seen other things, but he hadn't seen Ragnarok happen.
Just as a reminder to everyone, this is a Loki that was just after the first Avengers movie.
Yeah.
So, as far as he's concerned, he hasn't experienced that yet. So he looks through it, and he actually looks generally upset a little bit over it, especially when he focuses on the 9,000 deaths as a result. But then he quickly recovers when it comes to him about that. Well, the variant seems to be involved in a lot of apocalypses. And so he comes up with this theory, and he wants to test this theory really badly.
Yes.
So he rushes to the break room where Mobius is there having his salad, trying to have his lunch. And Loki comes in, quickly sabotages the lunch. Like, look, I've got this theory, and he tries to quickly demonstrate it by taking a salt and a pepper shaker in both hands, and starts pouring salt in the salad, then pours some pepper in the salad, saying, all this, this is essentially there's this kind of chaos you could do when you visit an apocalypse, this kind of chaos, but and then he goes over, he doesn't have a drink because Mobius has emptied his can, so he goes over to
it's like an adjoining table or something.
Whatever that guy's name is, I can't remember the guy, but Casey goes over to Casey's table and grabs his drink or whatever and starts pouring it into it says this is the apocalypse, right here. And it basically tries to demonstrate, look, it doesn't matter what we do because the apocalypse renders everything that's done completely pointless.
It's like a set point in time that you can't change.
It negates it because anything that would have been affected by the apocalypse is wiped out. So,
right.
So consequently, there's no way to alter the timeline. And so he wants to test this theory. They go out to, and I thought this was very funny, especially if you're a Doctor Who fan. They go to 79 AD, which is Pompeii, or as Doctor Who fans like to call it, Volcano Day. If you've ever watched the episode The Fires of Pompeii.
Mm-hmm.
It's Volcano Day. So, and then, it was so great to see Hiddleston trying to demonstrate his theory in practical purposes. He's like, he rushes out, he releases these goats from a car.
He starts yelling things in Latin to everybody,
and he's very fluent in Latin. So I want to give Hiddleston credit because I thought he did a great job delivering the Latin.
He did a fabulous job, yes.
But he's saying, like, I am Loki and I'm from the future and I know this is going to happen and
you're all going to die.
You're all going to die because that volcano right there is going to explode here at any moment. And they're all, people are kind of like looking at him like he's kind of crazy. And then sure enough, the volcano erupts. And then he goes, see, I told you so. And it's right there at that moment that Mobius looks down at his monitor, his reader, and realizes that there was no alteration to the timeline.
That's right.
Even though Loki intentionally tried to disrupt the timeline. So that proves Loki's theory correct, that you can hide in apocalypse situations. And that's what the variant, to give his theory, that's what the variant is doing.
And I actually thought this was actually a very clever way of bringing us to the plot point of the variant likes to hide in apocalyptic events because they can't be changed and stuff. And obviously it once again proves the fact that you need a thief to catch a thief, because obviously Loki, even though this is a variant of him, they probably have very similar mindset. Exactly. Or is she exactly? But the fact is, because like the variant will probably think the way I do, and so obviously he does the whole thing. And you mentioned when he looks over the Ragnarok file and there's that close up on his eyes and he seems to tear up. I think this show also helps humanize Loki even more. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had seen moments of that, I believe, in Thor: The Dark World somewhat, and in other moments, but I think here the purpose is also to really say he is not really a villain, or rather there's more to Loki than being your run-of-the-mill villain, which I think is fabulous. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there was one quote that I thought was very relevant to that, where Loki tells Mobius, at one point he says, "No bad person is entirely bad, and no good person is entirely good." Yeah.
So what he's saying here is, you can be a very evil person, but there still might be some good within you.
It's very also Taoistic, I think, almost. Mm-hmm. There's good and evil, and there's evil and good.
The yin and yang balance, yes.
So definitely kudos once again to the writers and Kate Herron so far for just the way this is all done, and I love the relationship, like you were pointing out, between Mobius and Loki. It really works so well. And I'm hoping, I mean, granted, we don't know where this show is going to go, but I'm hoping it will be a relationship that carries on, because it looks like maybe he might be the only friend that Loki has. Mm-hmm. Because it really seems that even though, like we said, the buddy cop thing, I think Loki is, maybe he as much as he probably doesn't want to admit it, I think the two really are enjoying working together. There's almost like that love-hate relationship going on. Right. And maybe it's something that Loki's never had, because he's never had a sidekick. If you
that I think is the key here, because I think Mobius is the first person to try to really understand Loki, mm-hmm. and that Loki has encountered, because I think a lot of problems that Loki has with his brother Thor is because of just that Thor hasn't really wanted to understand Loki.
No. And he's maybe just going very directly.
And Odin certainly didn't, even though Odin raised him, so alongside Thor. But So it seems like Mobius is the only first person that we know of to really actively take an interest in Loki.
Yeah,
and I think Loki is starting to, obviously at first he's very, because of his contrarian nature, he's very skeptical about it, and his, like I said, his very anti-authority nature also, that he's resistant to that, but I think he finds it intriguing, even though he probably won't admit that to anybody, especially himself.
And in fact, because I think that's also been a big problem of Loki's throughout that we've seen, is the fact that he never really wants to admit that he can be good and that people can care about. And I think, Mobius is probably, as you said, the only one really is interested in getting to know him more. Maybe the only other one outside that was possibly his mom. I think maybe that's why he was also so connected to Frigga in that sense, because she really seemed to care about him, and why he was so distraught. Especially when here in this show, when we saw in the first episode, when he finds out she's died.
As a result of his actions.
Yeah. Which tells you, I think, also how close he was to her. Maybe he had that, and maybe Frigga did see good in Loki, unlike others. But
if Loki was willing to let Frigga die, even if he feels something for Mobius, he might be willing to let him die as well, because that's his nature. It's
true. I suppose this show might end up being the whole
frog and the scorpion thing. If you're at all
it might. Yes. Once again, great minds think alike, Charles. Because I thought to myself, I wonder where this show by the end when we're done will be telling us that almost story of, as much as you try, you just can't change people's nature. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what Kate Herron's should we say vision is when it comes to this. But
no, that was the other show. I'm sorry. Vision.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else on Loki and Mobius?
No, I found their interactions very compelling, and it was very telling. I think that at the end of the episode, when Loki decides to follow Lady Loki, or the variant, whatever you want to call her, through that door, the time door, and Mobius is racing there at the end, and Loki has a chance to stay there, but he looks at Mobius and still goes through the door anyway. Now the question is, was he going through the door to chase down Lady Loki, or was he doing that to escape Mobius? What do you think?
I mean, it is very much open to interpretation, but just the look that he gives Mobius, because the fact that he pauses, it almost seems like he's conflicted. Is it, do I do this?
Right.
Or do I stay? Knowing Loki, we know that he loves to be mischievous and loves to kind of throw things on their head and stuff. So he might be once again playing the long game, as he likes to do. He is the one who lives for the long game. Right. So it could be that, this is just for show. I have to pretend that I'm on her side, so I'm going to follow her in. It might break your heart and it might upset you that I've, kind of misused your trust. But that's my thing.
But I'm playing a longer game. So
I think it's because Loki has stressed it.
So essentially, do you think that Loki is asking Mobius here to trust him?
I think that look is almost like, I got this. It's kind of let me do what I have to do, because Loki has stressed more often than not that he lives for the long game and he likes to play the long game. So
even though Mobius also made a point of saying, well, you stab people in the back 50 times. I know, I watched you.
Yes.
Well, I never do it again. That kind of...
and which shows you once again the great relationship between the two, and the writing is so crisp in this. It is it literally sings. So it's beautiful, beautiful stuff. Yep. So on to our third topic then here, which is entitled Blue Timekeepers. As first off, when Loki and Mobius hit a brick wall with their apocalyptic theory, they do get to discussing the timekeepers and the TVA. And of course, we have yet to see these timekeepers, aside from the statues in Ravonna's office and the video we had seen with Miss Minutes. Then, of course, we get the conversation, which could be very telling, between Mobius and Ravonna Renslayer in her office, where she shrugs off that the timekeepers are busy doing their thing. And we then get a long shot of a blue pen.
Mm-hmm.
And it does seem like the color blue may be very significant when it comes to what might be the bigger storyline. This is, we had the kablooey gum, and now we have this big shot of this blue pen. So, Charles, looking at this conversation between Mobius and Ravonna in particular, I know you have some theories, so feel free to share them with the class.
Okay, one or two, I guess. So, that pen, Mobius is in Ravonna's office, and we find out that she gets to have direct contact with the timekeepers, although Mobius presumably never sees them. It almost seems like he's, and then this comes up in his conversation with Loki, that it's almost like he's taking everything on faith.
Yep.
And which I thought was interesting. And there's the reason he was there. He was trying to get Ravonna to sign off on this mission, and she hands him a pen, and the scene already established that there was like all these artifacts, some of which that Mobius had procured, but apparently Ravonna is the only one who is allowed to keep them for whatever reason. Mobius calls them trophies. And
he says this office looks more and more lavish every time I step into it.
So he knows what he's done for Ravonna, but it seems like especially when he takes a look at this pen, which he doesn't seem to recognize, and he turns it over. It says Franklin D. Roosevelt High School, and it's like, I don't remember this pen, and so if this came up like some previous field operation, what was that? And Ravonna. And this is where it gets really interesting here. She implies that she has another secret TVA analyst, like Mobius, that Mobius doesn't know about, on the side, right? And there's also implications that they have a very close personal or professional relationship here. Mm-hmm. So the big question is, who is this other analyst, right? So my theory, and I'm sure this is Nick's theory as well, our theory is because we know that Kang the Conqueror, who we talked about last episode as Ravonna's love interest, or rather Ravonna being Kang's love interest, so it makes perfect sense if this other analyst is indeed Kang the Conqueror, who might be being handled a little differently in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, perhaps, but we know that Kang is supposed to be introduced, as you mentioned last time, in the third Ant-Man the Wasp movie, I should say, Quantumania. Yeah. So, and it's played by yet another actor from Lovecraft Country, I might add. So they were smart. They were like, okay, we've watched the show, we ought to cast these people. And so the question is now, are we going to see Kang? And we wondered that last time, but it does seem like that, and the emphasis on blue is interesting because Kang, if you're at all familiar with the character in the comics, has a blue face.
That's right.
So it's kind of interesting that they would kind of hint that, and we see the color blue throughout. You mentioned the pen. We talked about it before we started recording here, that the typeface on the report of Asgard, of Ragnarok destroying Asgard, that Loki was reading was typed in blue ink. And I don't know what typewriter types in blue ink, but I thought it was interesting.
And of course the kablooey gum, as we mentioned,
the kablooey gum, which is also blue. So that kind of hints that instead of Loki or the variant, whatever, it was Kang that probably gave that child the gum, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's my theory, right. And I'm sure it is yours as well. But what do you think about this? Any theories of your own on this?
I mean, I do certainly think that, I suppose, if the recent MCU shows have taught us anything, is that it's always more than meets the eye, and I definitely think
that's Transformers, but okay.
Hey, I love that.
More than meets the eye.
I love that quote, so yeah. I love to play with it. But yeah, we definitely, we talked about the fact that Ravonna probably has a lot more than just being the lady behind the desk, and and what have you, and knowing her comics lore. Granted, okay, the MCU does like to take major departures from the 616 universe and what we know in the comics,
right?
But just kind of like Agatha Harkness, just kind of like a little bit when it came to the revelation of the Power Broker, you wonder whether is it really Ravonna Renslayer all along, in the sense that these timekeepers even exist?
Do they exist, or can we even trust Ravonna?
That is exactly my point.
Because if she is working with Kang, who we know is a big bad out there waiting to be introduced, this could be all part of their scheme.
And there has to be a reason why nobody has really seen the timekeepers, in the sense that she is the only one who, coincidentally, or how strange, is the only one who has direct access to them, and is always very, very tight-lipped about what they're doing. She's like, oh, they're just monitoring the timeline and what have you. Right. They're doing their thing. And Mobius, I think, is not entirely sold on this, because he seems to want to prod a little bit, but she kind of shuts him down every time he tries to prod her somewhat. So I do...
Partly also because Loki keeps putting little bugs in his ear about it. Like, hey, where are these timekeepers you keep talking about? I want to meet them. I want to talk to them.
Yeah, because he constantly refers to them as the three lizards.
Yes, that was good.
Which is always fun. But yeah, so I do think
magic lizards, yeah.
The magic lizards, that's right. So I do think that Miss Renslayer probably is playing a game of her own, and which will probably be revealed by the time this series is over. Also, I
told you to keep an eye on Ravonna.
That's right, folks. If you haven't, shame on you. And I'm sure this will probably be confirmed as we get towards the end of the series. But yes, I do think there's more to it, and not to mention the fact that, as I said, the whole concept of the timekeepers, it might very well be the whole Wizard of Oz thing, where she is literally the man behind the curtain, or the woman behind the curtain, playing off that the timekeepers are doing things while she and possibly Kang in the shadows are doing something else. And so the timekeepers are just a distraction and a narrative they've sold in order to do their own stuff. So I definitely think that that will be coming up soon. It'd be nice if we do get Kang, but who knows? We've been thrown for a loop before.
What are your odds on this? If you were a betting man...
Which I'm not, because I definitely do always try not to, because it always tends to not play in the odds are never in my favor to use a Hunger Games reference.
Right. But what's your gut feeling then?
My gut feeling is that we might actually get a big reveal, and we do get Kang the Conqueror, and it would actually make sense. But then again, they love to play fast and loose with us, kind of, oh, we're teasing it, oh, we're taking it away. It's like, you want this, don't you? You want it? Nope, you're not getting it. So.
And of course, we know it's all Mephisto, right?
At the end of the day, it is Mephisto. You know what? Someday we will be vindicated, and it will be one big game played by Mephisto, like has the world in his hands. Like, yes,
that's right. And every Marvel Cinematic Universe fanboy or fangirl would be going, "See, I told you, it was Mephisto. I told you all along."
Someday we will get that. Maybe in the What If series that's coming up. Maybe.
That would be hilarious. I would love that.
It would be. So yes, anything else on Ravonna Renslayer at this point, Charles, before we move to our fourth and final topic?
No, but I do think, like I said, it just makes her much more intriguing. And I think she's definitely a character that everybody needs to keep watching.
I very much agree, and definitely can't wait for next Wednesday to show.
I need to know more about Ravonna. Okay, give me more. Give us the episodes.
Yes, we want all the. We need all the episodes.
Give them all the episodes belong to us. Give them to us. Yes.
Nice quote there. Nice quote. So we come, of course, to our fourth and final topic, boys and girls, which is entitled "Who's That Girl?" Where, of course, we have.
Who's that girl?
I actually had that playing in the background.
They will appreciate that reference because it's a Madonna reference. So
I actually had Madonna's Greatest Hits playing in that moment. So I was like, oh, excellent. Thank you, Madonna. And I and I wrote it down. So we, of course, have the big climax to the episode in Haven Hills, Alabama. So we're staying down south once again. It seems like all the cataclysmic stuff is happening in the south. And I feel for you Southern people. I really do. But
well, if you've been down south, you probably understand why. But
true. Very true. Yes. So here we are.
Hashtag karma. Just saying.
Yes, this is true. So yes, we head to Haven Hills, Alabama in 2050, where Loki, the Hunters, and Mobius have come shortly before a major hurricane is about to obliterate the town and its citizens, and they are hiding in the Roxcart store. And of course, after controlling numerous folks throughout the store in a somewhat very nice game of cat and mouse kind of thing, which I liked, Loki and the Variant finally get a moment alone. Right. Where Loki appears to want to ally himself with the Variant to take over the TVA and have this audience with the Timekeepers. The Variant reveals that she's been stealing reset devices from the Hunters to literally bomb the sacred timeline, which she does, as we see back in the TVA, where Nexus events being created faster than rabbits reproduce. And of course, the Variant then opens a portal and disappears, like you were talking about, Charles, with Loki looking back at Mobius and following her, leaving them in the dust to pick up the pieces. So here, of course, Sophia Di Martino as the Variant. So what did you make of our Variant, Charles, and the moment when Loki actually gets to talk to her?
Well, I thought it was a very interesting discussion because, for one thing, Loki says a very intriguing comment. He says, I would never treat me like this. So I think he's partly suspicious that Lady Loki is not Lady Loki after all, because I think it was a veiled reference that he thinks that it's someone pretending to be him.
And saying what we'd said about this so-called Sylvie, it might be Sylvie playing, kind of like you said,
playing the part of Loki, perhaps.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe not a true Variant after all. And now this could be just, as Mobius pointed out, Loki's ego trying to say, well, obviously I have to be the superior Loki here.
He's the alpha Loki.
He's the alpha Loki, or at least thinks he's the alpha Loki. So he's probably trying to think, well, you can't be me because I would never do that to me. Mm-hmm. But so we'll just have to wait and see there. But I do find it interesting that he's suspicious. He's not entirely sold on her, and he was trying to get a read on her, which I thought was interesting. This back and forth, it was a very engaging back and forth. She's telling him that all of this isn't about him, which I thought was interesting. And then this decision to, like you said, carpet bomb the sacred timeline. So, and this causes everything thrown into chaos. We even see Ravonna Renslayer picking up a weapon, ready to get into the fray. And we see a bunch of agents heading through various portals through to 2050 Alabama. So the question is, well, why did Lady Loki carpet bomb the sacred timeline? Was it to get everybody out, perhaps, of the Time Variance Authority headquarters, so that she could slip in there to retrieve something, perhaps?
Well, in fact, because I was actually going to
like a misdirection, like, hey, like I'll create all this chaos and confusion to essentially, like, if you're talking on Earth terms, right? You were trying to get the cops out of the police station so that you could get
you created a diversion.
You created a diversion so that you could go into the police station to get something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I was actually going to pose that question to you, Charles. Yeah. But I will at this point. I'll give my theory. I mean, because I actually was asking myself this as I watched it, and because part of me was like, is this like Heath Ledger's Joker, who is somebody who just likes to watch the world burn, or if the dog chasing the car, and then once they found it, they wouldn't know what to do with it.
Right. There's a couple of great Dark Knight references there, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I love that movie to bits.
I wouldn't know what to do with I caught it.
That's right. Nice Heath Ledger impression.
Thank you.
But so either it's just really that she's an agent of chaos like Heath Ledger's Joker, or there is more to it. And like you said, there could be my thought was the other side is she maybe wants people out of the way, kind of busy trying to rectify all these Nexus events which she has created at this point by bombing the timeline, because there might be something in the TVA that she needs. Because she actually tells Loki, I don't want to take over the TVA. That's kind of like small potatoes. She almost scoffs at him, at almost how petty he is with like, really, you want to take the TVA? Is that all? It's kind of like, well, think bigger, man. So she's evidently thinking big, even bigger than that.
Yeah.
So you think to yourself, either does she want to see where these timekeepers actually exist and meet these timekeepers and overthrow them so she can literally control time? Maybe that could be it. But I think it's very hard at this point. It's almost like the presidential election. It's almost too close to call.
Why would she want to control time? So the big question here is, what does Lady Loki have to gain from this? What is the benefit here? So,
that's right.
So what is the purpose of this carpet bombing? Why is it so urgent to draw these TVA agents out? Mm-hmm. And so hopefully we'll get some answers next episode.
I mean, do you think it's because of that, or do you think it maybe is the fact that she just likes to watch the world burn?
I don't think it's an anarchic reason. I don't think it's just, chaos for the sake of chaos. Some men just want to watch the world burn. I don't think it's any of that. So, I think it's simply, I think it's misdirection. I think it's a reason for this because, if it is indeed the female Loki, if it is indeed Lady Loki is all about mischief, but not anarchy.
Right.
So, it just seems like there's a purpose here. And so we don't know what the purpose is, but there's a purpose here. You can use chaos for a reason, as Heath Ledger's Joker perfectly illustrated that in The Dark Knight. And I think that's what's going on here, but I don't think it's for an anarchic reason. Or a chaotic reason. I think it's to either she wants access to that TVA headquarters for something. Mm-hmm. That's my guess. We'll see if I'm right.
Yeah, and in fact, she said not necessary to maybe take it over. It might be just something that she needs, which is in there. Maybe it's in Ravonna's office, or maybe it's...
Maybe all those Infinity Stone paperweights. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. Watch out.
Those things are just laying around,
They're just happily in drawers without even being locked or anything. So
up by plants on the shelf, or or a bunch of stones lined on the cubicle wall. Up on the high part of a cubicle wall, but they're right there. I'm just saying, if I was a supervillain, that's what I would be going after if I learned about it. So
I'd be right behind.
Because I'm a little bit of a mischief maker myself, so
there's a little bit of Loki in Charles as well.
A little bit. Certainly not as handsome as Tom Hiddleston, but
well, but so I guess we'll see. We'll definitely see what the end game is here.
2% tops. Yeah.
Well, you're always very dashing, regardless, Charles. But so any further thoughts on the variant, Sophia Di Martino, or on this episode in general?
No, I thought it was a very effective reveal. Obviously, they kept it hidden for a good part of the episode. You only get the reveal of Sophia Di Martino at the very end, and but we did get enough of her. It wasn't just like, oh hey, she shows up in the final shot of the episode. We did get a scene with her. It was a very important sequence. So we'll see where it goes from here. I'm intrigued, and I have questions. Obviously, we talked about that. Why is she blonde? Is it in fact this, the Sylvie Lushton? Is it in fact her? Or is she actually, was that a complete misdirection, and it's in fact actually the Enchantress? Because that character has not yet been introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right?
No, it's only been in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not apparently considered canon for a lot of things.
Right. So the question is she in fact Amora the Enchantress?
Because we did, of course, see Scourge, and we haven't seen the Enchantress yet. So,
well, you notice that they did make, this is a little bit of an Easter egg. They made a reference, like when the TVA agents were taken over by Lady Loki.
Yep.
And they talk about B-15 being enchanted. They use that word specifically.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's more the Enchantress, or if it's Sophie or whatever her name, Sylvie. It's going to be one of those reasons, I think.
We might actually get the Enchantress, because you think in the bigger MCU picture, since we've had folks like Scourge and other folks from the Asgard side of things, she could be, Sylvie Larsen, the Enchantress. So
yeah, she is one of Thor's major cast. Yeah. That especially his villain, his Rogues Gallery, that we have not been introduced to yet. And the Loki TV series would be a great place to do that.
Because then it could possibly then come up again in Thor: Love and Thunder, which is an upcoming Thor movie.
Well, we got to set up that next Thor movie because, hey, corporate synergy. So, yeah.
So there is that to think about, folks, indeed. So, and I'm right there with you, Charles. I can't wait for the next episode. It's very, very exciting. It's a great first 2 episodes. We have, of course, 4 more to get through. So it's definitely going to be fun. So let's get to favorite quotes here. Did you have any particular quotes that you would like to share with us?
Yes, I do. Do you have any of your own? I'm afraid I want to steal yours.
But, no, go ahead, because there were so many. I'm sure that we were spoiled for choice when it came to this.
Okay, well, I have to do this one because I thought it was just such a great one. Loki and Mobius. I never stab anyone in the back. That's such a boring form of betrayal. And Mobius replies, Loki, I studied almost every moment of your entire life. You've literally stabbed people in the back like 50 times. And Loki replies, well, I'd never do it again because it got old.
I love it.
So that was great. I love that. Let's see. Mobius talking, where he makes the comment, some things, actually, most things in history are kind of dumb, and everything gets ruined eventually. But in the early 1990s, for a brief shining moment, there was a beautiful union of form and function, which we call the jet ski, and a reasonable man cannot differ.
Are you a fan of jet skis, Charles?
Like Mobius, I like them, but I've never ridden one.
Me either.
but so I kind of agree with him. I think they're cool, but I don't read magazines about them, so I guess not as much as Mobius.
You're not as invested in jet skis as Mobius is.
Yeah. And my last quote I'll give here, Mobius and Loki, again, surprise, where Mobius says, I need you to go over each and every one of the variants case files and then give me your, how do I put it, your unique Loki perspective. And who knows, maybe there's something that we missed. And Loki replies, well, you're idiots. I suspect you probably missed a lot.
Very nice. Great quotes.
And how about you, Nick?
I had another Mobius quote, which I really enjoyed, where Mobius says, existence is chaos. Nothing makes any sense. So we try to make some sense of it. And I'm just lucky that the chaos I emerged into gave me all of this, my own glorious purpose. That was great quotes. I really enjoyed it. And it just goes to show how Loki and Mobius have the best lines when it comes to the show.
They do.
So far. So I guess we'll see if the variants get some good quotes next time around. Alrighty, so let's get to ratings then, Charles. What do you give this second episode?
Well, I give this one another solid 9 out of 10. I thought this was, like I said, we're now playing the game. We got the rules and we got the players last time. Now we're playing the game, and it's becoming a very intriguing game so far. So I give it 9 out of 10. Probably important Franklin D. Roosevelt High School pens.
Very nice. And it seems like we're right on the same page, because I think it's definitely a fabulous, fabulous show. I'm going to give this 9 out of 10 ruined salads. So I think so we're definitely in tune with that. So Fandom Zone news. Of course, I did have a couple of things. One actually just came to mind right on off the bat here. The fact that apparently Loki is doing so well coming out on Wednesdays. Mm-hmm. Disney announced all their big shows as of now will be coming out on a Wednesday and not on a Friday, which shows you how revolutionary and how influential Loki has already been. And I believe they've extended this to both the Star Wars themed TV shows they'll be coming out with and, of course, the MCU stuff. So that's a little bit of news there for you folks.
Yeah, they're going to save the Fridays for their exclusive movies. Apparently.
That's right. Friday's going to be like movie night, and Wednesday will be the day for the TV shows.
Yeah.
Which I think kind of works.
Yeah, it does. Indeed. We'll see what happens. Interestingly, it's also a day before DC, HBO Max shows are going to be airing, I guess.
Coincidence? Maybe not. That's right.
And it's also comic book day, so that makes perfect sense, right?
It all plays. There's always a reason.
It worked out great for my birthday to watch this episode on my birthday, because this one aired exactly on my birthday. So that was a bonus little birthday treat for me. I really appreciate it.
That it did. So I guess, that seems to be the way that they want to play it at this point when it comes to Disney Plus. And the other thing I had, Charles actually mentioned this on our social media, with Titans Season 3 arriving on August the 12th, HBO Max has finally revealed the first trailer for the series.
A teaser trailer, yeah.
Yeah, and it teases, of course, Curran Walters, a.k.a. Jason Todd, transforming into the Red Hood. So,
basically getting the crap kicked beaten out of him by the Joker, presumably in a crowbar, but
that's right, exactly, because we get the whole crowbar
death in the family storyline, if you're wondering.
It very much seems like we will be getting a death of the family origin when it comes to this, and the introduction of Red Hood. So, folks, that's a teaser trailer is out there, and as we mentioned, Titans will be coming back on August the 12th on HBO Max. Charles, did you have anything else to add when it came to Fandom Zone news?
Well, I just thought I'd add, since Titans is returning on August 12th, I guess that means Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, will finally be returning shortly thereafter, yes. Correct?
I will confirm that. I definitely will confirm that Titan Talk
you heard
will
it here,
be returning.
People. Yes.
Yes, you heard it here first. Titan Talk will be returning, and
Titan Talk will return.
That's right.
In August.
And definitely looking forward to opening Titans Tower back again with you, Charles, and discussing hopefully Jesse Jackson.
We got a lot of dusting to do. I'm just saying, because that place has been closed for like 2 years.
Yeah, we have to send the cleaners in, major cleaners in, and desanitize. I think that place needs to be sanitized majorly. Probably have a rat colony in there at this point.
Yeah, break out the pledge and the carpet cleaner, and get some Windex perhaps. Spray those things down.
Exactly, maybe a couple of exterminators, because they'd probably be like rats and cockroaches and all that fun stuff.
Because damn. Yes.
Well played, sir. Well played. So that's the news when it comes to that. Fandom Zone fan mail. We do have some fan mail today from the ever-devoted and dedicated damsel that is Holly McMillan. Of course, Holly writes, "Hey, Nick and Charles.
Hey, Holly.
Hey, Holly. Another awesome episode. The opening with the Renaissance Fair was cool. Great music. Oshkosh is about an hour and a half away from where I live. Very nice.
That's right.
Not sure if they did or still do Renaissance fairs, but cool nonetheless.
They do.
I guess they do. There you go.
Yeah, we have one here in Ohio that's about halfway between Columbus and Cincinnati.
Oh, interesting.
So it's a pretty big, good-sized one.
Then Holly continues, Mobius going to bat for Loki was nice, and Mobius needs to lay down some ground rules when Loki wants to explain things. Hence, ruin salads. No using your salad or whatever other food item you have to explain an object lesson. Like that, Loki kind of narrowed it down to his other self hiding in apocalypses. no love lost between Miss Minutes and Loki either.
Nope.
I was also looking for a certain blue box when Loki and Mobius landed in Pompeii on Volcano Day.
See? Volcano Day.
It's a thing, folks.
It's a thing.
Been enjoying the ride and can't wait to see what the other episodes bring. I'll wrap it up here, Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you very much, Holly.
Thank you, Holly. We always love hearing from you. And, yeah, fellow Volcano Day enthusiast, Holly from Wisconsin.
Exactly. We love you for that, Holly. And, of course, if you want to be like heroic Holly and share your thoughts about Loki with us, please do so by shooting us an email at fandomzonecast@gmail.com.
Well, can I also add one thing? We also did get an email from David K. Proctor.
Ooh,
sneaking in at 10 o'clock this morning here in Eastern Standard Time.
Well, then, Charles, I appreciate you being the monitoring our Fandom Zone fan mail.
Yep. So I didn't want Dave's email to go unread, but
of course not. Feel free. Go ahead.
So Dave writes in, hi Dave, I should say.
Hey Dave.
All caps. I am really loving the Loki series! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! ! Hello, Fandom Zone hosts. Hello, Dave.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey. My goodness, Disney or Marvel or the magic wizards of television have outdone themselves. I am so used to watching episodic shows with the superhero cop or doctor hero fights the enemy or monster of the week that I sometimes get very bored. Mm-hmm. It happened with Supergirl and The Flash and a short bit of Green Arrow that I watched. It even happens with old Doctor Who or Star Trek when I oversaturate my schedule. You're on notice, Dave. Probably starting with Modern Who and Deep Space Nine, writers have begun to seriously develop characters and storylines to compare with the world of comics that fascinated me as a youth so long ago. The MCU movies did a fine job opening the door, and since I hadn't been immersed in comics and in so long, I felt home again. The problem with always outdoing yourself all the time is that you eventually fail, or you go off in a direction that you cannot recover from. I'm talking about you, Star Wars. Well, I think The Mandalorian might prove differently if you've watched that series. Disney or Marvel have been able to build higher and higher on the solid foundation of my fandom and continue to outdo themselves. I was sure WandaVision wouldn't be very good, or Falcon and Winter Soldier would disappoint, or at least be fan service emptiness. They were both solid shows that I loved.
Mm-hmm.
Loki
right there with you.
Yep, totally agree there. Loki is proving as solid as one could hope. I am not familiar with the Timekeepers or the TVA, so it's like discovering a new world for me and millions of people who felt like they found where they belonged when we were kids and first discovered comics, and then realized we were hooked.
Yep.
All we can do is hang on and see where the awesomeness leads. Thanks for being my tour guides, Charles and Nick. You're very welcome, Dave. I look forward each week to this podcast nearly as much as the next magic from Marvel and Disney. Excelsior! Thank you, David K. Proctor.
Well, thank you very much, Dave. That's definitely putting us on a very high level, comparing us to the amazing entertainment that Marvel Studios has been providing thus far. So, thank you very much.
So where's our Disney and Marvel-like paychecks?
That's right.
Just saying.
Well, those six figures,
waiting for the paychecks. Still waiting. Still. And I get the feeling I'll be waiting a long, long time for that.
Both of us, I suppose, will just be there out waiting. It's like any minute now.
Yeah. Any day. All right. But at least Dave has her back. So thank
you, Dave. So a big thank you, of course, to Dave and Holly. And folks out there, if you want to be, of course, like the wonderful Holly and the amazing Dave and share your thoughts about Loki with us, please do so by shooting us an email at fandomzonecast@gmail.com. Once again, that's fandomzonecast@gmail.com. Feel free to follow us on social media, Facebook and the Twitter machine. We certainly appreciate your follows and support. And Mr. Charles Skaggs, when it comes to you, when you're not chilling here in the Fandom Zone, where can our fine listeners find you?
Well, Mr. DJ Nick, you can find me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Facebook and Instagram, and my blog of geeky things. Wait for it.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
damn good coffee and hot, where I talk about all the stuff we talk about here on the Phantom Zone podcast. So comic book news, sci-fi news, comic book TV news, news of my other podcasts for Southgate Media, including, the Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, which, as we mentioned, will be coming back in August. So stay tuned for that. I can't wait, and I hope, Nick, you can't either, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm very excited about it.
We've had a long time off, and I'm really looking forward to this. And then Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, where you can find wonderful people like Nick or Holly and Dave every so often as they join me to talk about old, classic Who, modern Doctor Who, Torchwood, the Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish audios, and more. And coming up in this coming week, Christine Peruski is going to be joining us to discuss, once again, The Eaters of Light, which is a Peter Capaldi era story that we've already talked about. So we're going to be doing this as a commentary episode,
Nice.
one of our revisited episodes, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun as we go back through this, because Christine is a huge Nardole fan. Matt Lucas's character on Doctor Who, and this is one that she wanted to discuss, and I can't wait to talk about that. So I hope everybody please tune in. And then Ghostwood the Twin Peaks podcast, where hopefully eventually we're going to get our 99th episode recorded. We didn't get that done this week, sadly. But one of those things that didn't work out, but that's okay. But hopefully we're going to finish up our discussion of Hotel Room, Dave Lynch's series from 1993, and then leading up to our big 100th episode. So we'll have to see what happens with that one. Some big stuff, I think. Big announcement, I think, on that one. So everybody please tune in. And then last but certainly not least, Drunk Cinema, where Zan Sprouse and I, my co-host on Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast and also on Drunk Cinema, where we just finished up talking Ghostbusters 1984, and Zan had a little bit too much of the apricot brandy, favored by Bill Murray in that movie. But here coming up in a couple weeks, we're going to be discussing RoboCop 1984.
Yes,
RoboCop. Who is he? RoboCop. What is he? Where does he come from? And we're going to be discussing all of that, in our unofficial Peter Weller movie series continues with RoboCop.
Fabulous. Always a big fan of seeing Ed 209 walking down the stairs. That's always
right.
one of the best
We're not
moments.
walking down the stairs. Apparently the Daleks now have it on Ed 209 because they at least can go up and down stairs now.
Yes, that's right.
Unlike Ed 209. He just falls down them.
Sadly, he does.
And then he wails like a little baby. Whee! Whee!
Yes, really pathetic, Ed 209. I mean, you have all those amazing guns, but you're such a baby.
Yeah.
But,
it's always the bullies, right? It's always the bullies.
Exactly. They play tough, but they're actually super wimps, folks.
Yeah, pretty much.
And of course, when it comes to me, if you are country music lovers, I do host the radio show Whiskey and Cigarettes, where we play all sorts of country under the sun. For more information about that and what's in, visit our website, whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, if superhero movies are your speed, I do host Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast, where we discuss superhero movies 360 degrees while Batman happily dances across the screen, which is very, very, of course, timely for that. So yes, you can find you can find myself and Happiness and Darkness on Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram. Last but certainly not least, Ghostwood, of course, someday Ghostwood, Gold Standard. It's the G's here today. It's all about the G's again, me muddled up.
Was that an intentional Freudian slip, perhaps?
It's too many things going on in this little brain of mine, Charles. But anyways, yes, Gold Yes. So yes, Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where myself, Zan Sprouse, and Rachel Friend are going through all the Best Picture winners from 1927's Wings to Present Day. Next week, we will be taking on the Waterfront with, of course, the legendary Marlon Brando and the great Elia Kazan.
Excellent.
Exactly. And, of course, a great Elia Kazan film for sure. And Zan will be sharing her not so much love for director Elia Kazan. That's it.
Interesting. I got to listen to that.
You certainly
I'll
do,
buy
Charles.
that for $1.
So yes, you can find, of course, Gold Standard on Facebook and the Twitter machine. And when it comes to this show, next time on episode 222 of the Fandom Zone, we'll of course be discussing episode 3 of Loki, and you know it's going to be good. Charles, any good closing thoughts before we sign off?
No, these first 2 episodes right out of the gate have been superb, and I'm really hoping these last 4 are just as good, if not more so. So we'll see how they continue, but so far this is promising to be a very interesting final 4 episodes, and we've already got a lot of theories, as everybody's already heard. So we'll see which ones come true, which ones don't. Hopefully more in the former column than the latter, but we'll see what happens, and I can't wait to talk next week with you. I want this episode now so we can talk about it right here on the Phantom Zone.
Well, I'm right there with you. Hopefully there'll be more in the W column than the L column when it comes to our theories indeed. That said, folks, we will see you next time with episode 3 of Loki. Until then, keep watching the skies. Ciao, everybody.
Bye, everybody.